Hello, welcome to part 9 of the Johnny Blender 3 series. In this part, we're going to break out the virtual crayon box and start coloring our little guy here. So, as you watched in part 8, if you did watch part 8, we basically just went in and set our seams up and unwrapped it to where we can easily paint our colors over here on our grid. So, let's go ahead and start doing that. The way we do that is go to Texture Paint right there, and you can see it puts the pattern on here. And then if you actually want to start painting, we have to open the toolbox back up. There we go. And right now if we started painting, it would be a white color. Let me drag that down so we can see a little bit more. So you can see it just paints on top of there like so. You can increase the strength so it's a solid stroke rather than just semi-transparent. And you can just kind of paint, you know, onto your model, basically. Or I guess there's no basically about it. It is virtually painting on your model. So, of course, I don't want them to have stark white skin, so let's go ahead and give it a little bit of a Caucasian flesh tone. About right there, maybe. And go over a few settings real quick of the brushes here. If you just click on the thumbnail there, it'll bring up a list of basic brushes that are in Blender by default. You've got your brush, which is what we were just using to paint the color on there. There's a clone, which you can, that's kind of a bit more advanced painting. You can use photographs and things like that and sample pieces from those and to paint on it. I went over this in Johnny Blender 2, so if you didn't have a chance to watch that, you might check that out and figure out how to do the clone. The drawing is, from what I gather, pretty much the same as the brush. Smear kind of just, kind of does that. It just smears, the edge of colors or so. Soften just kind of blurs it a little bit, and then texture draw is to paint texture on as well, similar to the clone. But we're just going to use the brush. So, well, let me get that color back, I guess. Choosing the brush again, put it back to its default settings. So, okay, so we'll go about right there. And if we just go ahead and start painting, you can see it just starts painting the color on there nicely. And you can see it updates in this window over here. Now, for example, side note here, say you want to go in there, set my strength up. There we go, now this full strength of the color wasn't on there a second ago. Okay, another quick thing, it's easier to paint on your model if your subsurf is turned down. So right now you can see we have two subdivisions in our view, which works fine for just looking around a bit. For painting on there, the smaller it has, the easier it's going to paint. And if your model's smooth enough but without the subsurf, just going to turn that off, you can paint even quicker. So, just kind of your personal preference and how strong your computer is. And that will kind of determine how fast you can paint your model. Now, the way we're painting right now is called projection painting. It's project paint. And basically, it acts as like a film projector or something like that, slide projector, where you're painting on pretty much what's visible. Like, pretend that the paintbrush is like a beam of light pointing at the model. It's only going to paint what's visible. So if we look around here, you can see it did not paint the top of the head or anything that was not in the view. So if we turn that off, it'll kind of go around the corners and everything. Still not going to paint exactly everywhere that you can't see, but it will get inside all those nooks and crannies that are kind of hidden when you're doing the project painting. Now, you might be wondering, well, I'd like to paint his hair, but I don't want to have to, let's go ahead and just grab a dark brown color. Right there, nice chocolate brown. Go in there and accidentally paint on his forehead or something like that. Let's just go ahead and undo that. This is where project paint actually comes in handy. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter, so let's go ahead and turn that back off, undo. And this, the better way to actually paint like the hair and things like that is just to do it over here on our UV image editor window. And we'll have to go to image painting, then turn that on. And now, to be able to see where we're going, we need to go ahead and go into tab view here in our 3D viewport to get our, everything selected here. If we turn off image painting, you can see everything selected. So, this is going to be our hair piece. So if we turn that back on, image painting, you can see it a little better. And just go ahead and come in here and paint. You can zoom in as close as you want, make our brush maybe a little smaller. Do the same thing over here, turn on the toolbox like we did earlier for that. Come way down here, set our radius quite a bit smaller. There we go. So if we overlap onto this shape here, that's going to go into our ear, which is part of the skin tone that we want. So make sure you stay within the lines. Actually, you don't have to stay within the lines, just as long as you don't cross over into the other lines. So go ahead and make our brush a little bigger now. Okay, and just go ahead and fill in the rest of the area here. Okay, so that's about all in the heads. If we come over here to the 3D viewport again, tab out of edit mode, you can see that our hair is now colored. Okay, now one thing I noticed, go back to edit mode so I can see the layout. The project paint and everything kind of acted as a oh, what's the word I'm looking for? A stencil type of thing where it didn't color where the sideburns were, or even the top of the hair. So I'd like to go ahead and get those colored. So let me go ahead and get the color here, and then we're going to grab the eyedropper tool, and we'll come over and select the skin color again, and then we'll come in here and just paint on top of all that area. Go ahead and fill in forehead, this area over here. Okay. So we'll get into some little bit more detail momentarily. Let's just go ahead and get the basic color for everything first, and then we can jump in and do the detail afterwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go to turn the image painting off over here, so we can kind of get an idea of where the eyebrows are. And you know what? A good easy way to do that is to go ahead and select that hair color again. Boom. And let's just kind of do a spot paint right there, so we can find that eyebrow. Looks like it's right there. And then this eyebrow over here, same deal. There we go, and it's going to be right there. Okay, so now we tab in and then go to image painting again, zoom in here, set our brush size way down. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the eyelid, the eyelids of the eyes, so we'll make those a slightly darker shade than the rest of the skin, just to kind of separate them out, give them that nice claymation feel. Okay, so that eyebrow's pretty good. Let's go grab that other one. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, just color all these in. And then this area back here is really probably not that important since it's behind the eyebrow. We'll never actually see it, but you know, for uniformity's sake, let's go ahead and color that in. It's also good practice for hand-eye coordination with your mouse, getting really close to those lines up there like that. So, okay, so we got our eyebrows and our hair and our head skin. I'm going to give that one subdivision, or just turn that back on so it's a little smoother. Okay, so the head's pretty well set, or the basic. Like I said, we'll come in here with some more detail, add a little bit of rosiness to the cheeks, or I guess since it's a guy, it'd be ruggedness. So let's work on the eyelids now. And like I said, I want that to be just a little bit darker than the rest of the skin tone. So let's just grab our eyedropper, grab that skin tone, and kind of maybe a little bit more of a reddish tint, and maybe a tiny bit darker. So about like that. And now I'm going to come in here and go ahead and just kind of paint on one piece of each of them. Kind of do like we did on the eyebrows, so I can identify where they're at over here. Okay, so now we'll grab everything, and yep, looks like I was right with that. Let's go ahead and make our brush a little bit bigger. And you know what? Let's see. If you want to get a straighter edge, right now you can see it's a very blurred edge, a very soft stroke. If you want a sharper edge, we're going to do that down here on the paint curve. So just click the arrow there, and it'll expand. And we can click this, this is basically identifying the brush. Like if it was curved, that means that this part is going to be solidly hitting on the canvas, as it were, and then it'll gradually fade out. Right here, this is pretty much straight across, so it's going to be straight pixels the whole way. And that might be what you're looking for. For me, that's a little bit too much of a sharp edge, so I'm going to grab this one and then modify it so it's fairly sharp, but it still has a tiny bit of a fall-off edge there, so you can see it's a little bit cleaner. So just go ahead and brush that in and come over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I usually have my keyboard shortcuts playing. I forgot to turn it on this time. Let's go ahead and do that. And it'll be graphic. Set that up to 40. There we go. Kind of keep an eye on it right there. Go ahead and, that's our mouse, and then it should show the keyboard shortcuts down here. If it'll actually show it. I don't know if there's enough room or not. Let's see. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Pay no attention to that S. I was just testing out the display there, make sure it was working. So okay, so we're painting in. I guess you don't really need to know the keystrokes here because it's all mouse work basically. Just painting and grabbing with the middle mouse wheel, scrolling in with the middle mouse wheel, zooming in. Line that up. There we go. And last but not least, there we go. Okay, so now we tab out. See, he's got a little bit darker eyelids. So, I like that. And remember what I was saying in part 8. If we just go ahead and save the scene now, it's not going to save our texture map. It's just going to save what we've done in the scene. So if we want to save our texture map, we have to go Image, Save Image, and then it'll save it. So, actually, saving, Control-S, saving over our scene, it's not really going to do much, unless we change the the topology or anything, something like that. So just make sure you save your image when you're texture painting. Okay, so like I said before, he's going to be pretty much nude, modeling him nude. But like I said, the part 8, his legs, I'm going to go ahead and make those black, and then kind of just make him shirtless rather than completely clothless. So let's go ahead and grab the old skin tone. Get the eyedropper, select that. There we go. And now we can just go in here and just paint in top of the whole body. And since we don't have project paint turned on, shouldn't have a problem getting the paint to go inside the tops of the shoulders there that are disconnected. So we can make sure that is the case momentarily. And go ahead and get the top of the neck there. And just go ahead and zoom out and just kind of just run the brush across everything. A lot easier to see now. Also, if we paint his hands, kind of difficult to see against that gray background. But now they're standing out quite nicely. Okay, almost there. Since we changed the fall-off settings of our curve for our paintbrush, we'll actually worry about that when we start working on the pants, but you can see we just put a swipe across there. It makes a nice straight line, so we can have a nice separation between his waist, or for his waist, so his pants can be sitting on top of his skin, as you know, where they look separate rather than just being faded together. Okay, almost there with the skin tone. And let's kind of zoom in here, make sure we get all these touch-up areas. Good. Careful you don't forget about what's in the background and accidentally run the brush across the hair or something. That we've got the color we want already. That's easy to fix if you do. Just take a few steps back and kind of start, not necessarily start over, but you know, use the techniques we used at the beginning to fix it. So, okay, so there he is, pretty well shirtless, but not very many people that I know wear grid pattern pants, unless maybe they're playing golf or something, but he's not playing golf, he's a superhero. So let's give him, I would say black, but I don't like to do set solid black, so I usually go with a really dark gray. So let's just put that about right there. And if we just go right now, it's going to be a really dark brown. So I'm going to put the 3D cursor, or not the 3D cursor, but the color picker right there in the center of our color. I don't know if you'd call this a color wheel, but the color selection. It's right there in the center, so it's gray, and then we'll make it a little darker. So not solid black, but just dark gray. Okay, then we'll just come in here. Okay, here's a good example of what can happen if you're not careful and you're just painting along. I was painting on his legs, but you can see it put a swipe across his belly, and we don't want that. So the way it's laid out here is I was painting on his foot here, and it just swept across that whole thing. So let me undo that, and this is where project painting comes on, because it projects only and it paints only on what you're looking at. So before it kind of just paints, you know, wherever it lands, but project painting, make sure it's painting only on what you're wanting it to paint here on the 3D viewport, if that makes sense. Okay, so we'll get the rest of the legs painted, and that will be about it for part 9. Not a straight line, but it'll work. Okay, almost there. Now, I can tell that there, if I zoom in here, I can see that there's going to be some issues with the top of the legs texture. So let's just select all that. And we'll just come in here, and I can see that's where the leg will be. So let's just go ahead and paint that in here, so we don't got to worry about accidentally swiping across the rest of the body. And right here, right there, and that's his shoes. Those are all good. Or that's the bottom of his feet, I guess. His footprints, and there's the other leg. So we'll get that. And I think that's pretty well it on the outer view. I guess this is the head part under the hair, so let's go ahead and clean that up. Turn on our brush thing. Oops. Don't need that. Oh, it's over here. Sometimes I forget small things like that, so just go ahead and sample that color and paint here. And now, if I look across the map here, I can see there's a few things that are still not painted yet. And that's probably going to be the mouth, the inside of the mouth. So let's see what all we need to fix on there. This is probably the teeth. Yeah, I imagine so. And then this is another set of teeth. And then I imagine this is the tongue. Let me just come out of image painting so you can see it a little better. So the teeth, the tongue, teeth, and should be one more somewhere right there. That's going to be inside the mouth. So I would like to make the inside of the mouth sort of a darker reddish tone, as you know the inside of your mouth is, but I don't want it to have a harsh transition from the lips to the inside of the mouth. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and paint the normal flesh tone inside this mouth area, except just around the edge, and then I'm going to kind of blur it into the reddish color here in the middle. So let's go ahead and go back to image painting and make my brush a little bit smaller. Go ahead and paint around the outer edge like I was talking about. Zoom in here so I can get right up against that corner. Okay. And I'll go ahead and bring it in just a little bit further so we got more to play with. Might as well just fill it all in. Okay, so now we're going to make it a little more red, a little darker, and that's a little too bright maybe. About right there I think. Set my radius up, and let's go ahead and set the paintbrush curve to the original, like so. And then I'm just going to click in here in the middle a few times, and it's going to eventually spread out. So there we go. Okay, so that's the inside of the mouth. Let's find that tongue. There it is. And let's paint it the same color. And I'm going to go ahead and set the brush up again to have a nice, and make it smaller. Okay, almost there. Oops, got the edge of a shoe. Zoom in there. I want to brush a little smaller. There we go. Sometimes when I get in real tight spaces like this, I like to whisper. It just seems appropriate. Okay, so there's his tongue. And finally, the teeth. Let's get this selected and get a white color. Boom. And we'll go ahead and paint that. Zoom in. Almost there. Okay. One more set of teeth over here. I'll zoom in so we don't overlap on accident. Same thing down here. Just zoom in right there. Whisper because we're in such a tight spot. Okay, now we can talk a little louder. It's alright. Yes, I know I'm silly, but that's what makes the world go round. Okay, so now we will go image, save image. If you go save as image, it'll just make a copy of it and save it as a different file, but we just want it to save image. So there we go. We have our first painting session pretty well set. I'll go ahead and save the scene. And that's going to be it for part 9. Part 10, we'll go in and add some extra detail and kind of play with some of the materials and things. So it's going to be all for part 8, and I will see you in part 9.